Thank you for tuning in once again to his Vine and Victory podcast. My name is Kurt Olson. I'm your host, coming to you on the morning of May 27th, 2026. Four things, two pretty short ones, but we're going to start in the South. Um, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, Congresswoman from New York, specifically the New York City area, was recently in Montgomery, Alabama. And she was there for the purpose of having to show some force after the recent Supreme Court decision regarding the Voting Rights Act, in which the Supreme Court voted 6-3 related to gerrymandering and the purpose of gerrymandering of getting specific candidates in specific districts. And she was also in Montgomery, Alabama, trying to uh, drum up the memory of Martin Luther King Jr. And she's basically trying to help Southerners understand that they need Northern progressives again. And what she doesn't get right um, about the Voting Rights Act, and a lot of Democrats don't, and they avoid this. The Voting Rights Act became law on the backs of Republicans, not Democrats. And one of those things that happened in the 1960s. And with all of the civil rights movement stuff percolating and bubbling and popping up, and so that's kind of the scene. But she goes down there to try to just. She's considered a candidate for president on the Democrat side in 2028, and are Southerners going to vote for uh, someone like Alexandria Ocasio Cortez in mass? I don't think so. The another reason is simply because the House is not a launch point. The legislature typically is not a good launch point for candidates for president. The fact that Barack Obama was able to move from the Senate to the presidency is one of the few examples over time that that kind of thing happened. You typically get your presidents from the governors across the country. Um, all of that said, AOC is trying to drum up an issue. I'll let people watch the 5-minute video of her, of some of her remarks in Montgomery, Alabama. But it is, she's pointing to Georgia and Tennessee and Louisiana and Mississippi. And it's like, I don't think there's anything there. She's she's trying to create something out of nothing. And could she get some votes there? Absolutely. Is it enough to win an election, even a national election? Absolutely not. So I'll start with there. My second stop, a little further to the north and closer to the north, is North Carolina. I'm going to let people read. In fact, I'm going to provide two links to this. One is going to be a TV, local television segment out of Wilmington, North Carolina. And the second one is a article that appeared in the Wilmington, North Carolina paper. Get this. Over a 20-year period between 1999 and 2019, The New Hanover County Schools. Now, I haven't done the recon on New Hanover County Schools. I don't know how big it is. Doesn't matter. Two different teachers over that window of time engage in multiple sex crimes in various schools in Hanover County Schools. And the district ends up paying out between $6 and $7 million because of it. And there was very little, if any, accountability administered to both the local school board and the local leadership in that school district. And because there's going to be three things I show you. One is going to be some comments from someone from North Carolina who I follow on Twitter, who is commenting about the TV news report. But I'm also going to show you I'll let you read the news story. Just shocking, just shocking stuff. And I'll let that sit there. And now we're going overseas. The first stop is Australia. Another link I provide in the description to the podcast is going to be on a conversation. I've watched this now multiple times. And if you want to understand the mental gymnastics people go through to justify transgender thinking and acceptance, you have to listen to this conversation that runs about just shy of 3.5 minutes between a senator in Australia and a bureaucrat for the Australian government. Fascinating. And frankly, I could hear this conversation unfolding in any Western government, including the United States. And I'm sure we have some states in this country that have had conversations that are, if not identical, very similar to this. Just amazing stuff. The last stop I'm going to make here is Iran. Now, people who have watched this podcast over time, and especially since late 2025, early 2026, I was casting light on the protests in Iran before it was cool. Okay, so I'm not some Johnny come lately to the Iran conflict. So we've had a ceasefire here for a number of weeks, and we're left asking. And a week ago, it seemed like Trump had kind of exhausted his patience and was ready to resume fighting. Because I believe it was Friday, he was supposed to be going to New Jersey to spend some time with Don Jr. and his new bride. And Trump called off that private time because of things that were happening in Iran. Now, it was not gauged that way, but it was obvious based on events that happened over the weekend that things were unfolding with Iran, and Trump was giving time just to that. So I don't know what he's trying to accomplish. I've been down this road one or two other times, and I get the whole idea that when there's some kind of an armed conflict, they typically end in negotiation. These people running Iran are apocalyptic, Islamic apocalyptic murderers. Why would you think you can negotiate with them? Um, I saw two segments. One I've been able to find the clip of. The other, not so much. But I'll explain. So, Erin Mullen. If people don't know her, she was a right of center commentator in Australia who now is with Salem Network. Salem Network is connected to Salem Media. They have multiple Christian radio stations here in the country, although they would probably say they've backed out of Christian radio and are now just focused on other stuff. But the point is, it's Salem Media that she is connected with here in the States. And she is speaking to a gentleman who is with the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Um, really, in terms of thinking about geopolitics, a really strong organization to follow some of the writing and commentating of. They do good work there at FDD. Um, uh, but with that said, this guy's making a point, and I would argue a really strong point, because as this conflict emerged back in when was it, March, in February and March, it was becoming obvious that people were like, well, Israel is just talking America into a war. And it shows once again that the politicians in Washington, D.C. are beholden to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, and not, they don't think for themselves. Well, during this talk of ceasefire, four countries have been holding us back from unleashing what I can only assume would be the worst of all military force: Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Qatar, and Pakistan. Now, of course, Saudi Arabia is a main player in the Middle East. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is, I mean, it's there. And we've had connections with Saudi Arabia over time. Turkey is a NATO ally. Why we trust Turkey, I don't know. Recep Erdogan is a thug and should not be trusted. That's all I'm going to say about Turkey. Qatar, we know Qatar as well, has been doing the bidding of Hamas and Hezbollah and a lot of others, and they've been buying an awful lot of influence in the United States of America. So I don't trust them. And then you got the Pakistanis. Okay. Do we really need to rehash the war in Afghanistan and help people understand that Osama bin Laden went to uh, Pakistan for nearly 10 years to escape the Americans, and he was hiding right under the Pakistanis' nose? And for the Pakistanis to have ever have possibly played see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, I'm sorry, it doesn't pass the smell test. They knew he was there. They knew he had a compound there. And May 2011, we were just past the earlier this month, the uh, anniversary, 15th anniversary of that evening attack to take out Osama bin Laden. And anyone who has heard the narrative of what actually happened there, everything was not clean and simple. They had a helicopter go down, and there was thinking that it was some things were going to go sideways, but the SEALs finished their mission. But On top of all that, just as a Christ follower, Pakistan is one of the worst violators of Christian persecution in the world. Um, they're always in the list, the World Watch list by Open Doors USA, and the work they do to produce that. They are why Washington is trusting the Pakistanis is mind numbing. They have not earned the right to be trusted. So, uh, for me, of the three players, I don't even trust. And Saudi Arabia is in that military where it's tenuous. It can go either way. So, why are we listening to them every time they say, but don't resume the fighting, but don't resume the fighting, but don't resume the fighting? When Israel even talks to us and it's regarded as, see, Israel's at it again. So I wanted to make that point because when I heard it's like, that makes sense. Yes. And it points out the hypocrisy we get from people, especially on the right. Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, variety of others who have this aversion to all things Israel, and but they're not pointing out the obvious that we are doing the bidding right now of foreign nations. And the other point is this, and this was made by retired General Jack Keane. Okay, and he made the case that Iran could simply be doing one thing: waiting Trump out, and they're willing to keep this thing going with talks and occasional fighting and talks and occasional fighting because come January 2029, Trump's gone. And they're hedging their bets on a Democrat taking power who they know would be weak and would be more like Obama and Biden, or they're willing to hedge their bets on JD Vance or Marco Rubio, and they think that they could talk them in circles as well. Mr. President, and Mr. President, I'm nobody, okay? I'm I'm a guy with a podcast in Western New York State who spent 20 years in journalism and learned more than a couple things about how government functions, okay? But at the start of this, you told the Iranian people help was on the way. And every time you do this kind of nonsense, there are posts on social media reminding people of the things that Donald Trump said back in January and early February. And they're waiting for you to finish the job. There was at least 42,000, and I believe that number to be vastly higher than that. At least 42,000 Iranians who died unarmed because the military was unleashed on the protesters by a murderous regime. And why are we talking to them? And why do we pretend on some game that it's going to end well? So that's all I have this week. But I wanted to mention those things, and I encourage people to check out the links in the description to the podcast. I'm going to share one final thing in the description to the podcast, and it's kind of it kind of falls under weird news of the week, and it's also kind of scary. because there was a water problem in Trinidad, Texas. And so, lady turns on her spigot, sees the water is brown. She goes to social media and starts saying some things. This lady was jailed over it. And this is the kind of thing. Now, we didn't necessarily see people jailed over it, but during COVID and the Hunter Biden laptop, oh no, we're just going to ban you from being able to have access to social media. So there's a lot of things there. So please be looking for that in the description to the podcast. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and we if you like what you're hearing here, if you like what you're reading with my column, dropping another one on Sunday related to the Democrats. If you like what you're getting here, please share it, please. And for those who do, I thank you in advance for doing so. And uh, this podcast is about freedom. In the very first podcast I did, I explained the purpose of this podcast and the name and where it came from. This is about freedom. And it, we have people around the world, even in our own country, that are trying to stifle freedom, trying to stamp it out, and in bringing every tyrannical idea under the sun to make freedom go away. So that's what we're focused on here, and I thank you for listening. And until next time, God bless and goodbye.